Hello, my name is Michael K, and this is my submission for A Link to the Past, Swordless All Dungeons. This is a major glitches category, meaning that pretty much everything is allowed. The one thing, the two things that are still disallowed are up, down, left, right, pressing boost up and down or boost left and right at the same time, and out of bounds ancillar misslotting. Out of bounds ancillar misslotting is not necessarily the best term to describe it, but we are going to use ancillar misslotting later on, so it's the best way to say the difference. Out of bounds meaning that the ancilla land in a spot that they are not usually supposed to land in. So here we are starting out with a quick little escape from the escape section. If we would go ahead and just do the escape right now, we would have to grab a sword, and this is swordless after all, so we can't do that. Instead we are going ahead and beating Eastern Palace. We used a secret slip to go out of the escape area of the map, and we are going to use another one to use as a shortcut to quickly get over to the Eastern Palace itself. We are teleporting onto the sledge and then jump down the bottom of the screen right in front of Eastern, which is at the top of the screen, and we can enter because this game is programmed to still work like that, which is nice. So during this segment here, we just have to avoid a few cannonballs and enemies. Interestingly enough, we at this point can't die. If we would die before having Zelda rescued, we would have to fully restart the run. This is one of the reasons that there is a decently sized extra on the submission time compared to my run times, just in case anything happens. I don't think it would happen, but if I would have to restart 5 minutes in, I don't want that to affect the schedule. So we right now do not have a sword, obviously, and can die, so that means we have to take damage carefully. Like this guy here, we are able to damage boost through to hit the switch, sadly take another hit. Usually he won't hit you again, but sometimes he does. And then we are able to just move past them with the key and go ahead and go over to the big key chest. The big key chest has a bunch of enemies that you are supposed to hit with your sword and beat. We are just damage boosting. So in this room are 2 additional safety arts that I could take if I would be in a marathon situation, but during any normal run situation I won't take them, just because I don't usually should need them. So we now have the bow, our first weapon. And we instantly have to use it. In this room, the right green Igor has a key we needed to progress into the next room. In this room we have the 2 anti-fairies. They don't really bother us, so we are just able to get through them. And yeah, we are just moving on and going to quickly finish up the dungeon. The red Igors only can be hit by arrows, not that it really matters if you only have arrows anyway. And now we have Amos. Amos optimally gets beaten with 18 arrows. Yeah. Obviously I messed up a bit. And I went out of the way from the pendant in case I accidentally grab it before that Zelda text. If the Zelda text would appear during the crystal catch, we would hardlock the game and would have to restart. Obviously not a good thing to happen. So next up we are going to go grab our boots from Sarshwala. The boots will allow us to dash into the wall behind here and grab 100 rupee and a few bombs. And that will allow us to keep on going. This is also the only money we need for the run. And we will need more bombs, but those bombs will be enough for a good while. So yeah, I guess I will quickly talk about rain state. The rain state in that we are right now, there are no enemies outside of the castle area, which we are obviously not in. That's why there are so few enemies. And we are just able to dash through every screen that we need to without any issues. So in this Lost Woods hideout, we do a so-called bomb boost into the wall that will allow us to clip in and get straight into EG, the exploration glitch. The exploration glitch allows us to pretty freely move around the underworld map. There are a few restrictions, but they are usually pretty easily avoidable. Here I accidentally transitioned a bit too far by dashing and not cancelling the dashing time. Zelda still wants us to help her, but obviously we are almost there already. So it's always pretty much joking with you. You are pretty much directly in front of Zelda's cell and you get the text that you should come and save Zelda. So I will quickly talk about the version that we are playing on. I'm playing on a normal Super Nintendo, or I guess Super Famicom system, on a SD2 SNES, just because that's more convenient for me than my actual JP 1.0 card. And we also play on the version JP 1.0 because it has a few exclusive glitches. The other versions of the game sadly do not have any exclusive glitches, so you only play JP 1.0 or JP 1.0 if you are playing at a high level in this game, or any glitch category. So right now we are going to keep moving through EG. We do want one item, the Cane of Samaria. The Cane of Samaria is extremely broken and we are in the major glitches category, so we can abuse it to its full extent. Here I'm just going to do a quick little hover. It's not required, but if you can do it, why not? We are grabbing the heart here. Definitely important to grab that heart. If you forget that heart, an upcoming boss fight is definitely one-hit KO instead of two-hit KO. And you don't wanna have a one-hit KO boss fight. It usually doesn't go well. So here we are doing something that we call Death Mountain Ascent. This is the newest version of this glitch. Death Mountain Ascent is pretty much any glitch that gets us either into the cave leading up to this mountain or right onto this mountain. That are the two ways of Death Mountain Ascent. We usually use this at the beginning of the game in order to quickly save the old man, which gives us a mirror as well as the spawn point up here. And the dead rocks there, we really want to avoid them. They can be a bit annoying if they hit you too much. And now we have to avoid a few boulders and get up on the mountain. So we are entering this middle cave and doing another one of the citrus clips, this time inside. This will allow us to get again into EG, this time without having to dash into bomb or anything. Sadly, there are a few collisions down here that are hard to avoid. So right now I am using a visual cue to line myself up to transition at the top two most pixels. Any lower and this is a soft lock. But with the visual cue it's very consistent, and even if you couldn't see it, just bombing yourself to the top will put you on either the top or the second topmost pixel, both being perfectly fine. Palace of Darkness, also often used as pretty much a refill for your bombs. You usually get into this dungeon on relatively low bombs and end on 10. And you usually just going to keep all 10 for a decent chunk of time. I kinda put an extra one, but it doesn't matter. There are so many extra bombs in this dungeon. And now it's time for us to go ahead and beat the boss. The boss in this dungeon is a bit deep in, but luckily we know a little shortcut. By mirroring next to a statue, we start the state where we can start dragging that statue, and by getting right past that the transition here and getting bombed, we unlock the camera and are able to keep glitching. Here we don't want to scroll the camera too fast early on so that we can get another heart, which means that we have 4 hearts going into the boss room. We take 1 heart of damage from hitting a spike, and then we can just go ahead and beat Hammersaw. Hammersaw takes 17 hammer hits. I do a first hit with a bomb, which is the same as 4 hammer hits. And sadly it is. But as long as you don't use up too many arrows, taking a death is pretty much not changing up anything. You just quickly refill your resources and then go ahead and head back into the fight. So yeah, to quickly talk about what the statue deck actually does, it does what we call juking the door. We quickly are beyond the transition line to the upper room and then get bomb snapped back down below the transition before we then go ahead and are able to juke the south wall, the door to the south as well. And the second phase of him, 8 arrows to the crystal and he's down. You could technically go for 4 hammer hits. Pixel precise trick. Definitely not worth it. But it's technically faster. So for the next split, what we are going to do is get the Maya crystal, but for that, and quickly need to explain how crystals are given out. Crystals are given out by checking what dungeon ID you are in, checking if the room that you are in is a boss room and has a boss defeated flag, and then giving you the dungeon prize that it should give you. And that's going to be Maya, but we are entering Palace of Darkness, which loads the Palace of Darkness, and we already have the Palace of Darkness crystal. To change our dungeon idea is actually pretty hard. There's only one place in the game that changes our dungeon ID without having to exit a dungeon. And that is the so-called sewer store. To reach that sewer store, you would either have to use a lot of YBAs or just go through EG. EG is by far the easier method. So what we are doing here is death roll. We are dying on the same frame as we enter a transitionary hole, which makes us actually just quickly loads the room below us and then able to transition up. We are now concentrated on the upper layer and jump down to the lower layer out of bounds. That's pretty much what happened here, and now we are in the EG state again. The EG state is pretty much just being on the wrong layer, and being on the wrong layer is pretty strong just because the game doesn't have too much transition on the layer that it's not expecting you to be. There is a bit of collision, but that's mainly combined collision. So when I jumped there down into the hole, that was to re-arm EG, and I'm doing it here again. EG gets armed by starting a jump and not finishing it. We never land on the ground, we just straight up fall into a hole. That never finishes the jump, allowing us to store EG. EG stored means we can now use that in exploration state at a later state. During that segment right there, we used it to get back into EG after we are through the through the sewer store. And now we are just going to quickly head over to the Helmer's room, the boss of Palace of Darkness, which luckily is not too far away. He drops down the crystal and we're picking up, and well, this is the Maya crystal. I guess I quickly talk a bit about how the throne room sewer store works. The sewer store does an operation onto whatever dungeon ID you have right now. I think it's an XR operation, and just puts you into whatever dungeon that is. For Hyrule Castle, it's the sewers. For sewers, it's Hyrule Castle. And for Palace of Darkness, it's Maya, and for Maya it would be Palace of Darkness, but that comes up even rarely. So we are now still having EG stored. We haven't used the second time we stored the EG. We do need a few more bombs. So we pick up a few and then do a quick little bonk to get us back into EG. We are now again in EG, and we use this to travel over to Thieves Town. We just have a few cues about when we are at which point in the EG map. That's how I navigate through. I just remember, hey, turn at this room. We are now in Thieves Town, or in the village of the Outcast. The thing to note right now is we are Link, but we have no Moonpearl and we are in the Dark World. That just now was a lie. We are in the Light World, and the game just doesn't update that until you are doing an overworld transition. So we are still in the Light World, but since we exited out of a Dark World dungeon, or a Dark World multi-entrance cave in general, we just were able to quickly move ourselves over the entire map. So we are now in Thieves Town. Thieves Town is slightly different if you don't have the first glove before entering, so we will have to consider that. But we already did the attic during the previous EG segment, so we don't have to redo it now. That was the bomb floor that we bombed open. So this is the room we just had to kill all the enemies, and now we are going to get our first glove, which coincidentally is also the second glove in the game, the Titansmiths. The vanilla game does not have most items being progressive. There are a few progressive items, but those are not like progressive in the same way they are in the randomizer. The randomizer turns a few of those items into actual progressive items. In vanilla, it just gives you the whatever item you should get from here. So right now we do the Maria glitch. This gave us a really interesting transition, right? And using that transition, we are able to do a bit more of that juking. And another Zamaria glitch, and we are in Swamp Palace. While it's not showing, that was the hookshot that we just got there. So, what a luck that Swamp Palace is so close to Thieves Town. Wouldn't it be even more luck if we would also be able to get to Tower of Hera for the moon platform here? Here we are. So we now have the hookshot and moonpearl just gotten. That will just speed up stuff later on. I'm right here equipping the hookshot to hope for a quick little glitch. Hearts are on frame roll. If you collect them, and if you collect them with a hookshot, the hookshot won't delete the heart when it gets collected. It remembers it for like a moment longer, and is one of the only drops where that is actually true. All other drops are actually vanishing. So yeah, blind, a bit hectic, but with the kind of Samaria, not overly hard. You can kinda cheese your way through him a bit. So now that we are through Steve's Town, the next dungeon that we will do is the woods, but before we do that we will have to quickly prepare ourselves. And for that we need to go back into the light world. You just saw me mirror there twice. That's us being in the light world, while the game thinks we are in the dark world. It's a bit confusing. The mirror works based on what type of overworld screen you are on, not based on the worlds that you are in. So we can there mirror from light world to dark world back to light world. And now I'm going to grab a bit of safety. In this tree are fairies, and we got a bug net, and we got 2 bottles. And we don't need the bottles instantly, so I'm just going to fill them up with 2 fairies. Those fairies are going to be pretty helpful fighting the boss of the next dungeon, Morsula. Morsula is very hectic, and he really doesn't want to be killed. I can kinda understand him, but he needs to understand we have all dungeons to beat. So I'm going to kill the red and blue beetheads here, not because they are needed to be defeated, but because they kinda always get in my way when I do this glitch here. So that chest usually has the compass. We kinda did a bit of data spoofing to turn that into the big key, and that door that we went through usually goes into a really pinball Gipto, a pretty weird room, I guess. Here we right now are doing a setup to do a hook push. I got the setup for the hook push, now I just need to go over the gap. I just keep messing up that part. So now we luckily have a fairy, so we won't die, and the hook push setup still exists, so we don't have to worry about that part. Okay, we finally got it, and so then instead we're just going to hover this. And we are now below the floor. So a hook push is a form of ancillary glitches. By putting the Maria block into slot 9, there are 10 slots, indexing starts at 0. Into slot 9, the highest normal slot. It for some reason lowers the value at the slots at which the hook shot looks for how long it should go each frame. So as long you never hit a value that is 0, you going to do a so-called hook push. You can control the length and the direction that goes on for each frame with certain setups. But there's also another thing that if you have one of a few certain Ancilla put into slot 0 during the setup, they may set up a certain value to something other than 0, which then gives you the exploration glitch state by just hooking something. And that was Mozilla, by the way. I didn't really got much to talk for Mozilla, but Mozilla resets damage, the damage it takes every time if you hit it into spikes. So if you do a slash on him, that would do 5 damage, and then he hits spikes, that damage gets negated down to 0, and instead of the 5 damage that you would have done. And it needs 4 hits with the hammer. So here we now need to go over to the Ice Rod Cave. The Ice Rod Cave is luckily just a bit over here. Definitely totally normal transition that we used. Probably not. I kinda here forgot about the actual route. You are supposed to just save and quit out, not walk out. But Anji manipulation or something like that is what I was told about. So yeah. I was not supposed to shoot that arrow there, but it doesn't matter. So here I'm now doing one of the 1.0 exclusive glitches, a fake flipper. In all later versions of the game, fake flipper was fixed by not making you able to move in water. So even if you can get into the fake flipper state in any way, you are not able to move, which makes that glitch totally useless. In JP 1.0 we can move, and that's the reason we can easily set it up even. The way that the game kicks you out of the water is by using the splash ancilla. So yeah, that's also an ancilla. The two main ways of getting yourself to be able to get fake flipper is by either despawning the splash after it appeared, or never letting it appear. By transitioning, we remove pretty much all non-major ancilla, and that makes us be able to despawn the splash before it ever after it appeared. Another way of doing so would be by dying and getting revived by a fairy in water. That means that the splash gets deleted because it's not important, and that works just as well. For ways that we can delete the splash afterwards, we only found those recently, and those are also part of all the ancilla glitches. Those are not mislotting, we are just filling up all valid slots, and then it just works. It just can spawn the splash, and that is the way we despawn it in those ways. Okay, we are now into Ice Palace. Ice Palace, it did had a few clips recently. We were, even in NMG, able to skip half the dungeon with the so-called Ice Palace bomb jump. And then we found Icebreaker, letting us skip the Ice Palace bomb jump and still skip even more stuff. So this dungeon is very broken by now. We just need to do a little bit of one single frame movement. And here we go, we got it. So what we are doing is we clip for 1 pixel into the wall, walk into the back into the doorway. The doorway has a weird property where it makes us be able to hold into the walls of the door to instantly move along them out of the door. We are using that outside of the door by holding into a wall to keep moving through collision, because during that walks the game for some reason doesn't check for collision. Thanks, Nintendo. And we are also going to grab the Blume for even more safety. The boss in this dungeon hits pretty hard, so having the Blume is really nice. We are also going to quickly grab a bit more health with the fairy. So yeah, now we can have still a fairy in our pockets, and obviously full magic. We kinda do not want to use any of the magic potions right now, because we do need those for glitching later on. So we kinda want to avoid using them. Each of the puffs takes 8 hits with the hammer. Being able to concentrate on one puff at once makes it so that you can obviously get rid of them a lot quicker. And if you are able to reduce their number earlier, that makes also the fight a lot easier, just from the fact that there are not so many of them going around. They are moving faster once you are having a few of them cleared out, but that doesn't matter too much. So now that we are finished with ice, we are next up into Swamp. Swamp Palace usually requires flippers, and we kinda haven't bought them yet. We also are kinda 489 rupees short to buy that one. So that's not really an option. But there are other ways that we can use in order to get into Swamp Palace, thanks to that newly discovered, those relatively newly discovered ancillary glitches. But first, let's quickly grab the bombs in the first chest down here in the dam. I don't need them right now, but I don't want to forget them after the dungeon, which is a valid point to get them. So yeah, we are going to place the Zomaria block, explode it, throw a boomerang, place another block. It's the first time I failed here and I just have to redo this. Now we are able to walk through that block. Good indication that he is in a non-normal slot, meaning 5 or higher. And obviously, since the setups that I used, you very much always puts him into slot 9. If it puts it into any slot, that's perfectly fine to know now. So now we again do the same thing. Also, this quick lamp spend is to set up search index for the next ancilla to be deleted, which is above 9, and it's the only known way to put any ancilla to any slot that is not in its normal spawn range. So now we quickly go downstairs. This is to get a fading transition, and we are also going back ups because we need to be upstairs, which again gives us a fading transition, which is luckily sets up a few values. So we are now having a door that automatically pulls us in. So we need to use this bomb in order to get us into the door and then be able to do a transition corruption with it. We are using the Maria to place a wall for us that we then push, and then also combine that together with a YBA, Yuzuhara's Border Adventure, to do a so-called Zomaria YBA. That is a very, very, very special combination glitch that allows us to go from there to Argos. I do not understand that glitch overly well, but I know it gets me there, so I guess that's fine. So we bring Argos off stream so that he so that he thinks that the puffs are gone, even if they are not. Pretty much, you can damage Argos with other attacks, but the fire rod is by far most consistent. And sadly I ran out of magic. At this point I tried to use arrows, which also works, does the same damage, but is much harder to hit, especially in this case where he still has the paths all around him protecting him. Also, I quickly had to go to the door at this point, so quick break. Oh, not now, but in the moment. Okay, now is the point, I think. Also, obviously, menuing at like this is pretty hard. Yeah, break now. So yeah, I'm back and trying to figure out where my menu is, and menuing while having no idea where your menu cursor is pretty scary. If you would accidentally use the mirror, that pretty much would turn you back down to point 0 in the dungeon. Also taking it as luckily we have a ferry. Yeah, we finally got through and got some beaten. And now time to get this Crystal Maiden. Don't worry, she's looking fine. She's the blue stripes right above my character. Totally beautiful. So yeah, the corruption that we have right now is called VRAM corruption, and playing like this is a bad idea for a long time. It's not necessarily likely to crash or anything. It's just extremely hard to know where you are, especially with heavy VRAM corruption that we had there. So instead, I'm saving and quitting and resetting as I'm doing so in order to get back to a more normal view. So we are now into Tower of Hera. And are doing a glitch called Herapod. By moving in certain ways, we can clip into this pod here by using spin speed or hook speed in this case. Another 1.0 exclusive glitch. And once clipped 1 pixel in, we can use that to just hook ourselves into the pod and keep on and hit into its loading zone. The loading zone bringing us to a ferry pond that brings us right to the top of the tower. That glitch also is called pod elevator. So we are now doing a glitch called Turtle Rock Climb. Just a pretty standard bootstrap and teleport. I know we haven't used that too much. And then we line ourselves up with the pattern on the ground in order to know where we are, and are jumping down to the Turtle Rock ledge. That ledge is very close to is very nice for glitches. because it brings us halfway through the game, through the dungeon. But why are we in Turtle Rock when we are wanting to go to Aghanim 2, who sits at the top of Ganon's tower? We are just going to do a lava dive, and we are at the top of Ganon's tower. So Aghanim, he himself can do either blue or yellow boards, and his clones will always do yellow boards. The blue boards we can't reflect, the yellow boards we can. We need to hit him with reflected boards. We can't just lure his friends to do that job for us. And we need to hit him 6 times in order to beat him. Ideally, we would be able to beat him very much at the top of the room, because that would mean that we would despawn the bed a bit earlier. So, in just a moment, a mistake that I haven't catched when I ran this is going to affect me, and that's not having another green potion. I had to use one green potion to refill magic during the Argus fight. Usually, that second green potion is just as much used for glitching. So I'm just going to quickly head back to the fairy fountain where I got the 2 green potions before. This time doing a bit of a different setup to get into the water. I am also going to grab myself an extra run for safety, because in the upcoming split the magic for one of the bosses can be relatively tight, just because that boss is not so friendly fellow. Also keeping one of the bodies free. After using that glitch, I will then have 2 bodies empty for furries, just for safety. So, and now we are just having to return to the castle. When running, at this point I thought I need to accommodate for Agawan being already dead, but no, Agawan will only be dead once I am done with the segment, so bit of a thinking from myself by fixing this mistake. So I'm using select buffers to get as close to the transition as possible. And then use a select buffer to not use any of my potions too early. I do have a backup, but not for this. So what I'm doing here is hold down out of the select menu and hopefully pressing Y the first frame after the select menu. If I do press it the second frame or later, I'm just transitioning without losing my potion. If I'm using it right on the right frame, I get the dedicated effect, a YBA with a green potion and a super tile door, giving me fake flute. This opens up the the overworld fake flute map. We fake flute over to 1, which gets us into so-called plate world. And we are just jumping into the water, which brings us down to synced blade world. By now transitioning into that synced blade world, we are able to pretty much go through a gigantic chunk of the underworld without having too much of a worry about anything really. Also here catching myself the 2 fairies for safety, and just gonna go ahead and quickly run over to the first boss that we are beating in this state, Vitreous. Vitreous is the last point in the run where we still want bombs, so I'm just going to throw all my remaining bombs into the pile of ice. And then try to finish as many of those ice up with the bow as I can get. I also want to keep about 8 arrows for Vitreous himself. And once I'm that far in, I'm just finishing up the eye with hammer. I'm also able to get a few hits into Vitreous real quick already. And hammer hits do half the damage of the arrows, so 4 hits were 2 arrow hits. 4 hammer hits were 2 arrow hits. And that pretty much made that fight nicely. We are switching now to Ice Rod so that we can fight the Trinix boss of Turtle Rock next. And usually we want to hit the Firehead before it can start moving, for exactly this reason, because he will start moving very quickly. And luckily we have fairies. Usually you're not supposed to need any fairies or any extra magic or anything. So now the Firehead is dead. Ice Head takes the Fire Rod instead of the Fire Rod. Instead of the Ice Rod. And thanks to Rhinix for that weird movement. I'm out of magic. Luckily we got an extra, just in case. Trinix here surprised me a bit with how low he already was. Usually he stays a bit further up, but it doesn't overall matter too much. As long I got the ferry, I will not die from it. So here we scroll the screen as much up as possible. The heart of Trinix, which was represented as the grayed out coin, spawns in the middle of the screen, and the same afterwards goes for the crystal, which is the price of the dungeon again. But the dungeon that we are in right now is the castle, and that's why that price gets spawned as ether. The castle has no other price set, so we get the ether medallion as a possibility. This room sadly is very corrupted, and we still have to find stairs in the middle of that room, so it's not the easiest thing to find. And now we have land molars. Land molars each head takes 8 fire rod hits, 8 fighter sword hits for and hammer does double offset and fire rod does quadruple offset. So fire rod 4 is 2 hits and hammer would be 4 hits. We also need to hit him very high with our hammer because we actually cannot go further down than I am already. There he kinda made me assume that he's lower than he actually is, and now we have almost all bosses beaten. I guess I quickly should talk about all dungeons requirements. All dungeons has a requirement to beat the bosses of all 10 Pendant and Crystal dungeon, Aghanim 1 and Aghanim 2. And technically also Ganon. So, in this segment, we just have to beat our lovely friend Aghanim. Aghanim is really friendly. Giving us so many blue balls that we definitely do want. He's also not necessarily the easiest to hit on this range. We actually cannot go closer to him. We are locked in this one tile wide range. So we are now out of the plate world. Aghanim nicely takes us out of there. And we are actually almost done. We now only need to dupe 2 more crystals. We need to dupe the desert crystal and the Totoro Crystal. The Maya Crystal we already duped earlier from Palace of Darkness. And so we are going to mirror here because we otherwise would just land back on top of the pyramid. Save and quit to Link's house. Obviously we are going to use hook pushes in order to help us with the duping. I used the lamps here to set up the value a bit and then switched over to Cane of Samaria, which will help and boost the hook push and the and getting there. Samaria being a pretty nice weapon. So we now enter the left side of Desert Palace. And then go for a quick little hook push setup. And we are set up so we can just quickly go ahead and jump down into EG from everything. And I kinda messed up the catch here, so it's pretty difficult to actually know your position while underground. There are setups to get the pendant's position a bit easier, but it's still pretty hard. Also, we picked up the pendant at the Trinix boss room, which we beat during the previous segment. And now we just need to quickly use the hookshot after we grab a stupid block. And now just walk around some underground collision. Dark rooms always have some collision in the underground because that's where they store how the lamp light cone looks like. For some reason that has actually collision. Don't ask. Also we saved Zelda. Yay! So we entered in Desert Palace, which is the Light World dungeons. So we are still in the Light World, even though we will exit out of a Dark World dungeon. And we have our next goal to be on the pyramid. So we will mirror to go into the real Dark World, which allows us to then save and quit straight to the pyramid as a little shortcut. Because otherwise we would have to take any other way there, which is obviously slower than just save and quit and land right where we want. So I somehow messed up this first try. So we are again just needing to get a Zumaria block into the right slot and then can do the hook push into AG. here we are now in the driver's room. So I will have a pretty sizable buffer extra time for this run, because there can be a lot of things that go wrong, and if they go wrong they cost around 5 minutes, having to probably reset the entire segment. I will also have my practice saves still ready, which doesn't have all the safeties that I will have in the run, but if anything goes bad I will have backups, so that I can still finish the run. Hopefully it shouldn't be needed, but I'm still relatively new to the category. I'm right now practicing for 4 to 5 weeks, and I'm still kinda thinking I'm not too consistent, even though I'm starting to consistently be able to finish runs. So yeah, I hope you liked this run, and I hope you actually consider this for the marathon. After all, Glitch A Link to the Past is meiner Meinung nach one of the coolest things that we have. The glitches in A Link to the Past are extremely varied and often just overlooked. A lot of the time, A Link to the Past glitches are kinda ignored to the kinda demise of a lot of the A Link to the Past speedrunners, but overall it's just all fun, really. So yeah, I'm just going to let the credits roll out and hope to see you at the marathon, and goodbye.